What's up, DanceFam? Welcome to another episode of the session, and we have a special session here for you because, as you can tell, we're in a living room of some sort, and we have three very special guest panelists, I guess you could say. We are here at Prelude DMV in Petersburg, Virginia, just a little bit outside of Richmond, and we have the three judges here with us today. Jason Rillera, Angie Chiraz.
You got it.
Chiraz. And Daniel Jerome. What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good, man.
Doing awesome.
Good. Don't be shy. It's only 2:00 in the afternoon. Let's just go down the line. First of all, I want to thank you guys for doing this with me and with Prelude. Obviously, it's nice to have other people outside of the DMV come in and kind of just give their critiques and just share their thoughts about everything. And you guys are teaching later on too, right? Tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, so that'll be awesome. Thanks for that. Let's just go down the line. Jason, you are the co-creative director of the company.
Yes.
And APT.
APT.
APT?
So that's our junior team.
Oh, is it?
So like age 13 to 18.
Okay, dope.
Yeah.
Dope. How long have you been the director?
Since 2012, 2013. So
Dope,
a couple of years.
And congrats are involved here because you guys are the current champions of Vibe.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you play second at Arena LA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's dope. And you've taught all over the world pretty much, right?
Not really. I would say like some parts of Asia, like some parts of Europe. But that's about it.
That's all over the world.
Sorry.
Only like a few continents.
You've been on this hemisphere and then the other. It's all good. All right, Angie. Project D, are you from Jersey?
I'm actually from New York,
Oh, snap.
but I
Okay.
went to school in New Jersey.
Okay, so the tri-state area.
Yes.
Cool. Project D Dance Company alumni. You went to LA
Yes.
and you were on GRV for a while.
Yes. I was there for 6 months actually for work.
Oh, snap. You might
But I
as
was
well
feel like I
dance.
was kind of there for dance
Yeah.
as well.
Dance
So
can
yeah,
do it.
I was super lucky to have GRV as a family while I was there.
Dope.
Yeah, moved back to New York also for work, where I'm still just training, growing. But yeah, it was a good time.
And you're involved with TurnStyles.
Yes.
You want to talk about that for a second? What is
Yeah,
that exactly?
sure. I started TurnStyles as a collective of women wanting to explore different urban dance styles. So we train in a few different fundamentals. Like I guess the typical practice is like we condition for a little bit, we do some fundamental drills, learn some choreo, and then just like freestyle the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say we're like exceptionally good at all those things, but it's a space where we could like support each other in going deeper with all those things. So yeah, it's been cool.
So we need more of that.
Word.
And then last but not least, Daniel, man. How's it going? You're from Seattle?
Yeah, Seattle.
Outside Seattle? Or from Seattle?
Outside Seattle.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
from like Spanaway, which nobody knows, so I just say Seattle.
I was just out there. I went to the Funko Pop HQ out in Everett. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why else while I was there. Anyway, you started b-boying in 2003.
Yes.
You choreographed for K-pop artist Jay Park,
Yes.
which is
little
also
bit.
literally just reading down your line here. And you're part of the crew Art of Movement.
Yes.
Definitely heard of you guys. You guys are dope. And currently you're a judge, performer, like headliner for World of Dance Tour.
Yeah, a little bit. I just did my last stop.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, for this year, but for sure I've done a couple years with
That's
them.
awesome.
Yeah.
What are you up to nowadays?
Just the same thing. Just like I've been just dancing a lot, getting ready for a few workshops and stuff like this. This is my last one for the year actually.
Okay.
I'm trying to like do physical therapy, having some problems here,
Sure.
but for sure, just like a lot of pain.
Especially as a b-boy.
No, I have a lot of like history. I think that's been kind of coming up and getting in the way of performances and things, but I'm really just finishing this year off.
Yeah, finish it off strong, man. So let's move into our first topic. And since you guys are all here mainly for judging, well, and teaching, obviously, but the first thing you guys are going to be doing is judging the Prelude DMV competition. I wanted to talk about judging in general, just because for this past like summer, we were reviewing World of Dance Season 2 on TV, on NBC, and we just weren't a fan of like the judging in general, because I mean it's J-Lo, Derek Hoff, and Neo. Derek Hoff, we're obviously okay with. But then like the judging criteria and how like it could be skewed towards a certain way for different crews and different teams. We just weren't a fan of it overall. So I just wanted to talk about how you guys coming into Prelude DMV, what you guys can expect. I actually have the score sheet in front of me for tonight, and there's a big chunk of it for routine, which encompasses everything almost pretty much.
That's it, yeah.
Execution, which is kind of vague at the same time.
Sure.
And then presentation, which is also kind of like, hey, how well you present. I mean, what does that really mean? It does break down a lot of it. But let's talk about criteria. Like, do you guys feel there should be something else with the criteria? Because like on World of Dance, there's choreography is one of the main top pieces of the criteria. But a lot of the crews don't really choreograph themselves. They kind of just borrow, at least, or they're loaned some pieces of choreography. What do you guys feel? And we can start with you, Jason. How do you feel about the criteria in general when it comes to most competitions? Because I know you've judged a bunch.
Honestly, when I judge competitions, I look like purely for like the vibe of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a dancer is like really into what they're doing, and then like everyone else is into what they're doing as well.
Talk closer.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
And I look for it's hard to come by in our community, but I look for originality.
Yeah. For sure.
I know when it comes to competitions, there's a certain formula that people use, but as a judge looking into the community, I really want to see like what new things we could cook up.
Yeah.
So originality is like
It's
key
big
for me.
you.
Yeah.
Cool. Angie?
Yeah, I think big for me is rawness. Like, I want it to feel real, which I know could be tricky because I think a lot of times there's teams that could be really raw and real, but then it could like get sloppy, which a lot of times like sometimes the rawness could make up for it. But there's definitely like a balance. So I'd say a balance between like rawness, still cleanliness. But I mean, it's interesting what you brought up about choreography because I actually haven't really thought about that, how a lot of teams might either like pay an outside choreographer or
just generally people not on the team.
Sure. Yeah. So that's definitely tricky, but I mean, definitely like the overarching like storyline of the choreography from beginning to end is like super important. So yeah, I mean, you're making me like even think a little bit deeper about all that stuff.
My bad.
But I think too with the rawness piece, I think when it comes to urban dance, it's always tricky because we're so inspired by a bunch of different fundamentals or like hip hop styles, and I think with that too, doing it like the right way technically could be super tricky, especially like if we're doing choreography. It's not like we're necessarily like training in just that style for like years and years.
Right.
And so I'd say balancing like a mix of those things. So yeah, rawness, technique, overarching story for the most part.
Cool. And Daniel?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Really, originality. I'd rather see something new versus like a clone of a team I've seen before.
Sure.
And even just like the flow of a set, like I want it to build up basically from beginning to end. I want to be pulled in and just interested throughout. Yeah. So.
Okay. That brings up an interesting point. We were talking, or last episode, I'm sure you guys didn't hear it, but last episode we were talking about competitions where there may be a team who has no like theme or even story at all. It's just straight up, dance, and how it can beat someone or beat another team that has an overarching story that might build up really well and like have a climax and all that good stuff. Would that overthrow the balance for you in that aspect? Say each one is technically clean, but the team without the story and the theme is just much stronger in terms of execution and cleanliness. But then the group who has the story and is more artistic in that aspect of it at least, but is not as clean and they don't execute, maybe not as strong. Say they tend to stick with the grooves more. How would you balance those two, and how would you weigh and judge against those two? Say you only had those two teams to judge against. We can start. Let's start down there.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would say it's gonna go back to, I guess, originality, or like one team maybe out dancing the other, because a theme will help, but even a set without a theme, like if it's just something new for me, or I feel I guess if like execution and everything is like pretty close, then yeah, I might look towards the theme if, you know, it's original for me, or something like that. But I'm always gonna look into, I guess, just the dancing and the content too in the set.
Gotcha. So you'll look for other aspects that can kind of help you make the call. Angie?
I definitely can't say it's black or white. Like I would choose one over the other. It would definitely be a case-by-case basis. I think when it comes to the team that they might be better dancers, movers, you said like maybe more groovy, but not necessarily like having a theme. I think it's tricky too, because a lot of times, even just like, let's say like I'm watching a competition, not even judging, it's hard to know what the expectations are for a team. Like, are we competing to be the best dancers? Are we competing to be the best team, or like have the best performance? Because I think someone could be like an incredible individual dancer, but not a good team dancer.
Sure. Definitely.
If they are very much like mature in knowing like the way they move, but not necessarily like moving as a unit with everyone else, even if they're like emotionally connected with the people on stage. But then I think on the other hand, you could have like an exceptionally good team dancer who then you have them dancing by themselves, and it's like,
that's true,
they're not as much like in it. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, because it's definitely case by case.
It opens up a lot.
Yeah, it's tricky, because it's like it's even like what type of like comparing apples to oranges can be tricky, because like, I don't know,
You like one, you like the other.
Yeah, especially if they're doing totally different styles.
Yeah.
Like World of Dance, like some of those teams doing completely different things. It's like, I don't even know the technique of like salsa, right? So it's like, how would I know if they were or weren't better? Yeah, that's a great question.
One to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
Jason?
Cool. I guess as a dancer, I look for two things. As a dancer, you're an artist, but you're also like an entertainer. So it depends if the team is both captivating to me and both like entertaining in a sense. So if they fill the like those two boxes right there, I would pick that team.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. So they need to find a balance pretty much between their art.
Between it. Like, even if there is a theme, like I don't like, it shouldn't like sway too much. It's more about like, am I entertained the entire time? Am I captivated the entire time as well? So
Gotcha.
whoever does that like the best. Because
I guess there can be a point when, say, someone does have a theme, but it kind of takes away from the dance aspect of it, where it's just pulling too much out of it. They're sacrificing too much for the
you only get like 530 on that stage.
Yeah,
too,
that's
so you
true.
gotta, like put all like your cards,
and that's
on the
tough.
table.
That's really tough. Cool. Okay. Is there? So originality is pretty much key for all three of you, I guess. And like you mentioned, it's hard to be original in this day and age. Not that, we do have YouTube and everyone can see how everyone else dances, and they're influenced by that, obviously, for better or worse. When it comes to judging, do you think it would help to have more judges rather than just say the three of you? Jason? Or do you think 3 is a good number?
No, I would say like 5 is a good number, so there's variety within it. Just because, it's like everyone has an opinion, and the more opinions, the better, I guess.
Yeah.
I would limit it at 5.
So no more than 5.
No more than 5. Yeah.
Angie?
I'd say most important is definitely variety. No matter if it's like 3, 4, 5, 2. I think most important is that they have different dance backgrounds. I've definitely seen competitions where there's a few judges from the same team, and that could be cool if then the whole team gets to come. But at the same time, they most likely have similar preferences. Not always, because within a team, there's so many different styles, even, and different inspirations for each dancer. But I think having a mix is good because I think different communities have different intentions of dancing, different inspirations, and even like what you were saying about originality, like it's super tricky because certain judges from certain cities or like areas, or like me coming from New York, like there might be something I haven't seen that someone from someone else is like, oh, I see this every day,
Right.
or vice versa. So yeah, I'd say variety, regardless of quantity of judges.
Cool. Dan.
Yeah, no, I agree. As long as the judges have different styles or backgrounds, like I think three is okay, but definitely like 5 or anything more. Like any more is just more opinions and like a preference, which
Sure.
I think will be good. Narrow it down. Yeah.
Perfect. And this is a good, you guys are a good set because you guys come from all over the country pretty much. And you're here in the DMV, which pretty much you guys are never, or usually don't really come around. So you don't see much. So everything will be fresh to your eyes, hopefully, right? At least.
Yeah.
When you guys come to a new area, go to a new area that isn't your own, and you see a team put on or dance a certain way that kind of resembles your area in particular, how does that make you feel? Do you see it in the negative aspect, like, oh, I'm going to take off points for this because it's not really them? Or do you see it as, oh, that's cool, they're definitely influenced by my area? Let's start with Dan.
I think it's awesome. I think when it comes to competition, though, I'm still going to judge on the originality part. So I'll definitely say my piece about that. Like if it's something, whether from my area or just an area that I know or something I've seen, like I could tell where it comes from, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll still, like, I don't think judging wise, like I would still look for something more original. Yeah.
Okay. Angie?
So the exact question was if you saw something that...
If you want to, say you're here and you notice that a lot of people here are dancing like they would in New York or
Sure.
New Jersey, would you judge like negatively against that?
Sure. I'd say there have been times, not necessarily where I'm judging, where I've seen a set where it's like, oh wow, that looks like strangely familiar to the set that like this team did back home. But I think like one of the disadvantages there of being on the East Coast is like things are a lot less commercial in general. So it's hard to know like if they would have even seen it. Unless like maybe one of them like was a judge at said competition or
gotcha.
something like that.
Right.
So that's definitely complex. But I mean, even with that, like, I think you could even bite like within a community. Like, I mean, there's a lot of house
definitely.
and hip hop
Yeah.
in New York, and I'm honestly in a place where I'm feeling like kind of torn because I'm like super inspired by house dancers, and like I actively train in house, but I wouldn't call myself like a house dancer because I'm not like always at house clubs or always battling. But even something like that, where let's say like some house naturally winds up in my choreo because that's like the way I move a lot of the time. It's tricky because I don't want people to see it and then just think like that's where it stops.
Sure.
Like there's a whole other culture behind it. So I think with stuff like that, like let's say I was in California and saw a team doing like a lot of house. I think if they were doing it like technically really well based on like what I know from my teachers, I wouldn't like feel a certain type of way about it. Cause like if it seems like they're like respecting the culture enough where they like have it in terms of like the feeling of it and the technique, then that's dope. Cause like it means that they've been inspired by the dancers I'm inspired by. But if they're like, you could tell it's kind of like, oh, like we tried to do this.
You're trying to
I'll
bite.
probably like be pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like an expert, but yeah, that could be annoying.
Gotcha. That's a good point. Jason.
I feel like there's a fine line on like stepping on toes when it comes to inspiration.
Yeah.
But I go back to it's not who did it first, who did it best. So if I do see like a team doing company style,
Yeah.
it's more so do it, but also add your own flavor to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not. I find it flattering if like I see moves from the company, but it's about like really putting your staple on it and like flipping it your way.
And if they don't,
if they don't, then I'm gonna
you'll say something.
I'll put a little comment on
You'll be
it.
a little curt.
Some angry
yeah.
emojis in there.
Interesting. Okay, that's a good point. That's great. And we talked about the dance background for judges. Now let's go into how long it should take for the judging aspect when it comes to competitions. If you go to a jam, they make it's win or lose, pretty much left or right. Easy to make that judgment. But when it comes to like competitions like this, you have a whole score sheet. There's a part for comments where you can write full paragraphs if you wanted to. But then you also have to keep in mind that there's a next set coming on, and they may or may not be competing. If they aren't, then perfect. You have more time to write. But if the MC is trying to get the show moving, say they got to be out of the room or out of the hall by a certain time, does that put a lot of pressure on you guys as judges, or would you prefer to really have a lot of time to make these calls? Does it not matter?
It doesn't matter to me as long as like it goes competition and exhibition, competition, exhibition. Because I would want to write as much as I can.
Yeah.
But I know like the show must go on
Yeah,
and everything like that. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter to me. Like I've been judging for a while now, so I know like
You're in the groove of it.
you have a time crunch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Gotcha. Angie?
I've mostly judged high school competitions. Like this is pretty much my first community competition.
Okay, cool.
So I'm honestly not entirely sure like what is standard for amount of time. But I'd say like as long as if any of us are feeling like super uncertain about something, like as long as we have the time to make sure we feel like at peace about our decision without having to just like jump the gun, I think it's fine. I mean, I would hate to like jump the gun and like announce something that we were still kind of unsure about, though I know like it's hard to like really be super concrete about like, oh, this one was always clearly ahead of this one, especially if you're talking about like a 3-way tie for third place or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know at the end of the day, like having come from competition teams, like those results, like they affect you emotionally, they affect your year, even if it's like something you poured so much time into. So I'd want us to do a good job, but I don't think necessarily like if we are feeling pretty sure about it, I don't think we like need extensive amounts of time. But I honestly, what you were saying about how at jams it's kind of just like, oh, like right or left.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because I don't think I've seen any team competitions where it's kind of like, okay, these two teams, then like one of them goes up to the next round, unless it's like a show.
a real tournament kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that would be interesting to see because I think a lot of times watching teams one after another, it's easy to say like, oh, I like this one better than that one, but it's when it's a long list of teams, like it's hard to compare the second team to like the 10th.
Right, and you're judging based on points at that point.
Yeah. For sure.
Daniel?
Yeah, I think like I feel pretty used to it too, as long as it's like competitive and then exhibition team, I'm able to keep writing notes or anything. And at least for me, like I feel I keep notes on the side so that I can continue to compare as the teams go on until the end. But I think it's enough time for me. I'm pretty I write notes as I'm watching.
Yeah.
And then even like after, like I feel I already know everything that I'm looking for, so I can kind of jot it down quickly within the before the next set comes on. Yeah.
And Angie, you mentioned this during your response about how whether you like one team versus another, and that really comes down to what judging is. It's about your personal preference when it comes to how you judge them, I guess. Like all three of you actually prefer originality over like something else. Someone may prefer that they're extremely technical versus original. I was going somewhere with this.
It's cool. It's a conversation.
Good.
Yeah. God. If you're being original. Oh. Is that really super important for how you guys judge? Say you do like someone, even though you think someone is clearly better than that team that you do like. Because say someone is super original, you've never seen what they've done before. they may not be the cleanest or they may not have the best flow in terms of their overall arching set, but you really like them, you're really drawn to them, would you give them more points in that aspect, or would you still have to vote for, or I say vote, or would you still have to, score this other team who is clearly much better than this original team? Would you score them more or better over that one team? Jason, if I made sense.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. So say there's a team that you're just super in love with. Like you've never seen what they can do. They're very original, very unique in that aspect, and you're just drawn to them, period. But then there's this other team who is technically much better, and they're much better dancers than this one team in terms of cleanliness, technique, even foundation for that aspect. Would you score the team that you do like better than that one team?
I don't know if I would necessarily score them better, but knowing that they took a risk going into a different lane, I would take that into consideration for sure.
Okay.
But it goes down to like who, once again, like
the full package,
who captivated, who entertained more for me, and I would base it just solely on that.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Angie.
Yeah, I would definitely say I would probably be generous to them in any categories related to originality, but I wouldn't necessarily like overhaul if I thought there was a team that like overall left a stronger impression on me. Yeah.
So you wouldn't like find extra points to give somewhere on your score sheet? Okay.
Probably not.
Daniel.
Yeah, it depends. I think I think I would in originality, I would give them a lot of points, but as far as just the overall set, like if the other one still passes for me in cleanliness, because like if you have a team that's super original, but you could tell that they don't have the experience or they're not performing, entertaining, whatever, then I'll still pick the better team.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So
okay, that's good to know. So pretty much all three of you are saying that you have to look at the entire package as a whole. Originality is just one part of the judging that you guys are basing it on. Is there anything else about judging that you guys want to talk about that I haven't mentioned? Anything that's been grinding your gears lately, I guess, when it comes to judging? If not, we can move on.
I think one thing that you kind of alluded to, and we've touched on it, but if there are teams that are doing like a very certain style,
which is what I'm going to get into. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely super tricky and sometimes make me question, like, should there be someone on the judging panel who is like a teacher in a couple of like those styles that might appear at our competitions frequently, whether it's like a hip hop judge or a popping judge. Because I mean, even like, let's say Elements this year, like there were a couple teams that had like some crazy like whacking and Vogue sections, and I was like, wow, that was incredible, but like I don't necessarily know the criteria for what makes like that technically right, even if like I'm feeling it. So it's tough because I mean, like, then it kind of just comes down to like who wound up being the judges for that day. But I mean, I guess that's also to say like we can't always take results like to heart as in like, oh, this means like that team didn't do that style well, or they did do it well. But yeah, I'd say that's pretty complicated.
Okay, interesting. So that brings us to our next topic. The use of street styles or just any dance styles in competition sets. So, they could be even contemporary, ballet for that matter. I've seen ballroom and kind of thrown into the mix, like salsa and stuff. But more in particular, the street styles in terms of like popping, breaking, crumping, and then the funk styles and the club styles like house and whacking and all that. First of all, do you guys prefer to see it in competition sets, or do you think a team should just kind of stick to choreography if that's what they're only comfortable doing? Jason?
No, it depends on what you're inspired by. But I'm gonna go back to like the variety of it. Personally, as a judge, I don't like looking for variety because that means I have to count how many styles they have.
Oh.
And I judged a competition in Colombia, and they're like, they have to have 3 styles minimum, or you can't like give them any score. So I was like, that's kind of weird because like I'm more counting how many styles they're doing rather than like judging them on their full performance.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's more so for me if like I'm engaged the entire way through, because 5 minutes is a long time to try to like stay engaged, you know. So
yeah, for sure.
Instead of looking for like variety of styles, I'm more so am I engaged, because they're changing it like every so now and then.
Oh, you might have like whiplash and you're just thrown off each time.
Or if it's like, you know, if it's the same thing, it's just like one line.
Yeah.
But you want that like roller coaster.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Angie?
I definitely like when I see styles, but if they're like done what seems to be the right way, kind of like I was saying before. But yeah, I wouldn't say like multitude of styles necessarily makes the team like more entertaining. Like I wouldn't want them just thrown in for the sake of it. Like if it goes with the music and goes with what I think the team is expressing, I think it's dope. But I also think it's tricky when it comes to certain styles that might be newer or that might not have like teachers that have a lot of opportunities yet. Like I think talking about street styles, a lot of like those teachers don't get like paid a lot or don't necessarily get as much like fame.
Yeah.
So I'd say if the team is like studying in any style, I think as long as they are putting something into like the culture surrounding said style, that's ideal. And like giving credit where credit is due. If someone asks them about their inspirations, as long as they're not saying like, oh, I invented this or something like that, I think it's cool.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Daniel?
I like versatility, but I would prefer you just kind of stick to like what you do, like stay true to your style. I think for me it can be annoying judging if I could tell like, oh, a piece is very diverse, but they just, you know, maybe like you could tell, okay, this b-boy section, you know, there's no experience in there. It's kind of just like the 6-step, a windmill or two, you know, because for me, I'm like I come from like, you know, b-boy background, so I could judge that pretty good. And I'm very like stylized, so it goes back to originality and things. And I would rather just, again, like, you know, even if it's just like sticking to like, you know, a choreography style, you know, base set, versus just like throwing in like, oh, we're gonna add house here to change it up. And it also goes back to the flow again of things. Like you could tell if it's interrupting, you know, or it's like, oh, if you know you didn't need that section in there, type of deal. Yeah.
And can I add one more thing?
Yeah, feel free.
Usually like the formula that works to get like different styles across is like having different songs. Yeah. But the company has been known for like one song sets. So it's more so like the offering that you give, that you offer many things. Like it doesn't matter if it's like different types of moves, but different types of staging, different types of experiences throughout the entire set. That matters to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes sense. For me personally, I've been training and locking for a long time. So like when I see a team or, you know, a crew, mostly teams, I guess, kind of just put a random 4 count of locking in the middle of their other set just because it's like a funkier song, that kind of like throws me way off. Even if only because I do know locking, that it would throw me off. Sure. You know, I'd imagine that all 3 of you are familiar with almost all the styles, at least. Does that throw you off when a team does do something like that? It can be even more than locking. Like you mentioned with breaking, you know, they're in the middle of even like one particular song. They're in the middle of a set of piece, but then you see like 3 guys off to the side, kind of like adding their own 6-step or, you know, a windmill, just because they can do it and because of, you know, it draws the attention for whatever. Does that kind of like throw you off your whole judging game? I guess like that didn't really make sense.
I feel like it more relies on the flow of everything. Like if they did add a locking section at a random point, then I'll be like, why did they do that? But if they flowed into it well, then it would make sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is still related to whether or not that team has members that are actually inspired by the culture surrounding the style, because if they are genuinely studying and or inspired by the culture, then it probably won't be super random and it will probably flow. I also think there's a lot of times where a team might have 2 or 3 members who study it, and then it's like, okay, we're all just gonna try it.
We're all gonna do it, yeah.
And I think that could be hard. I mean, depending on, maybe they'll stage it super well and you'll just be looking at like the 2 or 3 people.
Sure.
But yeah, wow. I was going somewhere with that, and now I had a brain fart. But I think with locking, for example, it's also tricky because talking about like styles in general and then talking about street styles weren't made for choreography.
Sure, yeah.
And that's also complicated because, I don't know, I mean, looking at like, I mean, not that I'm like 100 years old, but what I know about like styles and how they've evolved over the last 100 years, like there's been like mass appropriation of like tap, jazz, like a lot of stuff that was just like, oh, they're just studio styles now, but like they were not, like they were for clubs and they were for like, I mean, different depending on which style we're talking about, but I think that opens up a whole other can of worms because like with locking, for example, like I bet 50 years from now you'd be bummed if it was reduced to like only choreo, even though I love choreo and I don't think I'm ever going to stop choreographing because like I love choreographing. But knowing like the impact of our decisions there is like also important, I think. But I think if there are the people who are like really training in it, like also on like the creative side for that section of the set, like they have some decision making and like how it goes down as opposed to just someone telling them like, oh, give me some of your moves. I think it'll probably work out.
It could fit here. Yeah. Gotcha. Daniel.
Yeah, I don't think it well, I think it can throw me off. It depends on, again, just like how good it's done. So, and just going back on like breaking, because that's where I have like the most experience.
True.
Like you throwing it in because it like fits in a little section of the music, you know, like it depends on how that flows. And then also again, depending on like, because I'm still gonna look for originality in that too. So like I said, let's go back to the 3 people on the side. They do a 6-step into like a windmill versus like all the things that I've seen at battles and commandos.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm gonna compare with just knowing that. And yeah, like that usually in my notes that'll always be something. So like if there was, let's say, even like a small locking part that maybe to me I don't have like that much experience in it, but you could still tell, I think, as a dancer, like how it is on the music or the cleanliness of like the dancers on there, things like that. I'll always bring it back to that, and just flow is really important to me. Like as long as it's not just like tossed in, because like you could tell usually.
Gotcha.
Can I also add one thing?
Add as many things as you want.
Yes. Also, that was mad funny. I wasn't laughing at you, but I heard my back crack like through the microphone, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna curse on this podcast." But yeah, I wasn't laughing at you. That was my bad. When it comes to the street styles too, or just styles in general, I think it's tricky when the style is also linked to a culture or an ethnicity.
Which most are.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, especially like being Caucasian, I know like I'm a guest in like the house world. Like house was for Black and Hispanic people, and like it should still be like their way of escaping like a lot of what America has done.
Yeah.
And so with that, it's not like, oh, anyone who's not those ethnicities should do these styles, but like if those people are not still like actively, for lack of a better word, like trying to stay woke or like trying to be less ignorant with every day. Like I know I don't know everything, but like I know I don't know everything, and I know I need to ask good questions to like stay what's the word, to not like hurt said communities, like whether it's just like day to day like implicit like little biases here and there, or like the way I treat my friends. But yeah, I think with that too, you don't really know the members of a team when you see them do said style. So like it's not like I'll know like, oh, are they respecting the culture? Like, which teachers do they learn from, or how do they just treat people on a daily basis? And like, should we even take that into account when judging? Yeah, so it's like so many layers to it.
Gotcha. It's all good input, guys. I feel like we could talk about this for days, actually.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to talk about, and I think Angie, you brought it up, is when say there are 3 people who on a team that are experienced and they know hands down about a particular style, and they decide, okay, let's try and teach this to the rest of the team, give them a crash course in the foundations and the technique, and we're going to do a little piece to it and put it in our set. And I might be beating a dead horse here. You guys just might say it comes down to flow and originality again. But how do you guys feel when, a whole team does a particular style, but you can clearly tell some people are more proficient in it than others, like say in the back or on the sides, and being higher up, if you're in judging, you can see the whole stage and see everyone on stage, not just the people in front. Do you guys look down upon that in that aspect? Or are you guys, content with everyone having a basic understanding of, the very basics of it, while the people in the front are outshining those in the back? Jason?
Nah. I feel like
Straight up, nah.
it's more so if you're introduced to a new style, it takes time to get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like for me, like take a few months to like really understand it and then put it on stage instead of like trying to just put stuff together to get that variety aspect.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so really take the time. If it's like a really new style, train in it first. Make sure you teach it great. Make sure all your dancers understand and feel it and enjoy it before you put it on stage.
Great.
Yeah.
Angie?
Definitely depends on how like much of a basic understanding the team has, like what you were saying.
Like the 4 or 5 basic moves, and they just put them in different orders.
Sure, yeah. Oof. Definitely not black and white again. But I think if I could at least tell like the team like trained really hard in it, at least for this period of time. And as long as I don't know of any like types of vibes where it's like, oh, like we made this stuff, or like we are now the experts in our city on all of this or anything like that, then I think it's okay. But yeah, it definitely still comes down to like flow, originality, etc. Like so yeah.
Okay.
That's about it.
Dane?
Yeah, I think I would applaud the effort.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I think it's cool to try stuff, but definitely it's going to go back to competition, like don't bring it to stage if it's not ready. You know?
Word.
So
makes sense. And more often than not, I do see that happening in the sense where they just bring it for the variety aspect. Just wanted to get your guys' input on that. Well, cool. That's it. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
How'd you start dancing?
Me?
Yeah.
Just with, I guess, well, it's not the usual. I guess kids nowadays kind of just look on YouTube and they do whatever their friends do. But, well, I guess that's kind of how I started though. No, just me and a bunch of friends. We were encouraged, or I guess what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Influenced by those around us, Culture Shock DC in particular. For me, my cousin was on Mind Tricks, Jedi Mind Tricks on the Bay. Half of them and half of Culture Shock formed Jabberwockies. So he got me into the whole B-boy scene. Didn't really take to that. And then, my friends and I just, Tito Boy Scouts, I don't know if you heard of us. We're just started putting on funny things. Like we did an Austin Power set, and we were just dressed up and just had fun.
Wait, sorry, what are you guys called?
Tito Boy Scouts.
Tito Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
That's a cool name.
Thanks, man. It's
I like it.
we're just, hey, what should we call it? So, yeah, Tito Boy Scouts. How about? That's pretty much it. Tito Boy means like uncle.
Yeah.
Uncle boy. Anyway,
everyone has that Tito Boy.
And then I got into locking by watching like Hilton and Bosch, and I played in jazz bands a lot, played the saxophone, so funk was always in my life. And I just realized, well, there's a whole style that I can dance to this. Sign me up. Trained out in the Bay with Dennis Infante, some Groove Mechanics guys. Came back, and that's all I've been doing. choreo started leaving me and locking and freestyle just started coming to me. So that's where I'm at now. And I just, with this podcast and video stuff, I just like to keep conversations going because I think it helps generate creativity. Whether or not you agree with anybody, it gets you thinking. And that's enough to hopefully, make you want to do more in that sense. But thanks for asking.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. Obviously, I want to thank you guys for being here. Prelude DMV, thank you for judging. Thank you for teaching tomorrow. Let's go down the line and you guys let us know where we can find you. Jason.
You can find me on Instagram, jason.rillera. YouTube too, at CompanyFam.
Nice.
Instagram at Angie.Chiraz. That's ANGIE _CHIRAZ. Or
Awesome.
you can find me in New York. Yeah.
Good luck.
It's a really small place.
And Daniel.
Instagram, Daniel Jerome.
Oh,
That's
no
pretty
dot for you.
No dots. No dots. Just Daniel Jerome. I got lucky.
Nice. No one took it. And for those who care, you can find me at Lock and Robin on Instagram, anywhere else. Thank you guys for watching. Tune in next week. If you're in the area, if you're in NorCal, Prelude in NorCal will be there next week on the 10th, I think. Prelude East Coast in December, I think the 2nd.
Yep.
I think. So definitely hit up those. Definitely go out. I think, especially East Coast, they're doing an all styles jam. So if you're any style, definitely do it. At least share. It's fun. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more, go to dancefamtv. Hit us up on Instagram at dancefamtv. #thesession. Peace, guys.
Late.